All right, man, peace. So another Hollywood actor in the crosshairs of the hashtag MeToo, hashtag Time's Up, extortion, social re-engineering propaganda is Mr. Aziz Ansari. You'll know him as the little Indian dude who got his start, at least for the most part, on Parks and Recreation. Kind of corny, he kind of has created a niche for himself as a nerdy comedian. Well, he has gotten caught up in a quote-unquote dating and sex scandal with a female trying to imply that she was forced or coerced into engaging in sexual acts with him against her will. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Comedian Aziz Ansari is pushing back against allegations of sexual misconduct. Ansari won Best Actor at the Golden Globes for Master of None, his series on Netflix he created and stars in it. The 23-year-old accuser told an online publication that during a sexual encounter, Ansari was rough with her. She says that 34-year-old Ansari missed or ignored verbal and nonverbal cues that she was distressed. Anna Werner is here with how the accusations are now stirring another debate.
I read the so-called article that was written about the event that occurred, or the quote-unquote date, and the aftermath of the date that occurred with Mr. Ansari. And if he truly was conducting himself like that, trying to force her head down into his penis, once again, I don't understand why a lot of these Hollywood actors just don't find a good escort service so that they can get right to the nitty-gritty. This is why I told you, brothers, they need to legalize prostitution. Watch how quick a lot of these so-called sexual scandals go away. But they don't want the sexual scandals to go away because they want to reprogram men. There are plenty of high-end escort services that I'm sure many of his producer friends in Hollywood know about all across the United States. Why are you running around meeting a random chick at an industry party, spending money on a date with her to take her back to your high-end New York apartment and try to force her head down onto your penis? Makes absolutely no sense. When all he would have had to do is get into contact with a high-end escort service and have two or three bitches come by his place who look way better than her, could have got his schmang off, sent him about their way. See, brothers, everything that I say for a reason. If they were to legalize prostitution, it would cut out a lot of the gray area between the females who want to be respected and the ones who are just willing to embrace their Aphrodite alter ego, their goddess of love and goddess of lust alter ego. The modern day female claims that she can do with her body what she wants. So then how come she can't be a hoe? Right? Be somebody, be a hoe.
Debate. A warning, some people may find the language in this report very graphic. Anna, good morning.
Good morning, Gail. And something that's sparking some debate over this incident. As he accepted his Golden Globe last week, Ansari wore a Time's Up pin supporting women who face sexual harassment or...
Yeah, it might be time's up on his career, too. And pay very close attention to him. Watch him closely because he looks like the type who might jump out of a window if the heat gets too much on him.
Or abuse. The anonymous accuser told the website Babe that she was upset by that, and that prompted her to come forward.
Creepy dudes are everywhere.
Let me say this about Aziz Ansari too. He's down with the program in more ways than one. He is a Saturnian. And this is what I tell you guys too. You have to pay attention to how many of these people dress. Once again, you see him in the all black. I saw a photo of him a long time ago where I could tell that he was within the craft. And in order to get any prominence in Hollywood, you must enter the craft. You must go through the levels or through the grades of the craft to become a Wiccan, a Luciferian, a worshiper of Pan, Khnum, Cernunnos, whatever terms you want to call him. All right, Saturn, Bacchus. That's why you'll oftentimes see when you watch a Dave Chappelle or a Kevin Hart especially. Every time you see him perform, he's dressed in all black. So once you become a part of that industry and you sign your name to that contract, they can do with you whatever they want. When the time comes and they want to sacrifice you, they can do that as well. So Mr. Aziz Ansari is being put through a ritual right now. And he's just going to be collateral damage.
In his comedy routine and on his show, Aziz Ansari has targeted inappropriate sexual behavior.
So you're telling me none of this happened?
None of this happened.
I don't know, man. It's hard for me to buy. I mean, why would these people make it up?
But now he's among a group.
Now you see the little snippet from his show that they included. As I stated, he is collateral damage. They're going to use him to help promote the Time's Up movement. They very wittily find certain snippets or segments from these people's shows or movies to keep the narrative going in these storylines. He said it's kind of hard for me to believe. Why would they make it up? They made it up because you're not relevant right now to what they're trying to do. Look at some of these photos up here. Of course, Bill Cosby and Bill O'Reilly, Ben Affleck. What they're basically trying to tell men in the entertainment industry is that there was a time period where you had the advantage over the feminine principle. Even though many of these guys worship the feminine principle, there was a time when you had the advantage over them. That time is ended now. Now the female in Hollywood is no longer just Aphrodite. She's no longer the goddess of lust. Now she's also Diana. She's the warrior goddess. She's Kali Ma, the destroyer goddess. She has power over you now. At least for now. Until the revenue depreciates and goes down and drops precipitously. And then they're going to have to understand that whole Time's Up shit was a phase. And if the woman actually wants to have clout in Hollywood, they're going to have their own little segment. Because they're not going to keep providing revenue. They're not going to keep providing front money for these females' projects if they're not making money.
A growing list of men facing allegations of sexual misconduct.
Something that I found very striking was how quickly the encounter escalated.
Now, this is your average modern day socialist, bugged out, super liberal female. This is the type of chick that you'll see. If you live in New York, you'll be familiar with what I'm talking about. In the Village or in downtown Brooklyn, walking around, with the nose piercing. Not there's anything wrong with a nose piercing. You are allowed to have a nose piercing. You can pierce your nose or your ears, but most of the time they have the nose piercing. Might have tattoos on their forearms. They like to wear the thick rim glasses, and they're also for the weed legalization, and they're just angry at men. They're angry at men because, for the most part, they've been raised in an environment where their mothers have programmed them with a certain understanding of men. Men are the enemy. Men are trying to attack you at all times and tear you down. And also, these little super liberal websites and imprints or magazines are trying to make a name for themselves with sensationalist storylines.
Katie Way is a writer for Babe, an independent website run by a small staff of young women.
Ding! It's an independent website run by a small staff of young women. So how come they're not asked the question of why do you not have any male writers to offer up alternate opinions or alternate perspectives on your website? I guarantee you, if they do have a male working as a writer on their website, or if they were to hire one, he would have to go along with their sentiment. Because as will be revealed in a video that I'm going to do later on, it's starting to be a groundswell of opposition to what is going on many of these college campuses in regards to the fascist movements that many of these students at these universities are putting forth, where they can't handle being refuted. They can't handle their super liberal views being refuted.
Way spoke with a woman she's calling Grace, who went on a date with Ansari in September.
You're Aziz Ansari. Why are you going out on dates with women for? Like, I don't get that. The point of a date is to try to get the woman's approval. Why are you going out on dates? Like, this dude needs a coach, man. Like, what the fuck are you doing? There was a story one time where Tiger Woods, Derek Jeter, and Michael Jordan, they were all hanging out. They were at some bar, some club or something like that. And supposedly Tiger Woods told Derek Jeter and Michael Jordan that he doesn't know how to approach women. And Michael Jordan looked at him and said, "What the fuck are you talking about? You know how to approach women. You go up to a bitch, you tell her I'm Tiger Woods." Like, this dude Aziz Ansari, I don't get it, man. I just don't understand. You're dating bitches, bro? You're one of the most famous comedians in the world. You go out on dates? Oh, man.
Grace told Way that after having dinner, the two went back to Ansari's apartment where they began to kiss. But the woman says Ansari became too aggressive, pulling her hands toward his genitals multiple times.
Yes, because he was just used to getting his way. That's what I'm saying. Like, why would you, if that's your approach to dealing with females, and this is, of course, allegedly according to the testimony of the woman who went back to his apartment. If that's how you're going to deal with them, if you're going to deal with them like she's a groupie, why take her out on a date? Like, why? Like, get hooked up with an escort service and you can handle your business.
She was not interested in having sexual intercourse with Ansari, and he continued to press her despite repeatedly acknowledging the fact that she was not comfortable.
In a statement yesterday, Ansari said the encounter, by all indications, was completely consensual, and that he was surprised and concerned when she texted him the next day to express how she'd felt.
He has to be very careful, because as a South Asian as a South Asian member of Hollywood, his roles are going to be very, very limited. Now, due to the fact that you have Netflix and many other outlets for creativity in Hollywood now, he's not really dependent on being cast in television shows and movies like an East Indian or an Arab actor may have been 15 years ago. But he certainly can still be the recipient of a blackball, particularly in the time period, in the atmosphere that has been concocted and created by the mainstream liberal media. He has to watch himself. And just by looking at him, he comes off to me as being someone who could be susceptible to mental fragility, especially at the thought of being quote unquote dishonored. Remember, dishonor is still a major thing in other parts of the world, in the non-American, non-European parts of the world. Dishonor is still a reason that people kill themselves. If you look at the suicide rates in South Asia and Eastern Asia, they are way higher than other parts of the world, because they still hold honor to be in high regard. So he's someone who, and this is why I say you have to watch him, because when you have people like him who come into this quote unquote culture and they start to embrace the Telima principle, now you're mixing Telima with the honor code that was implemented into you by your quote unquote community, by your culture, by your parents. It could lead to a sense of extreme embarrassment, which could lead to thoughts of suicide.
Do you think some men need some relearning?
Oh, yes.
We've already covered these bitches. Do you think some men need some relearning? Also, pay attention to the color scheme here. All black and white. And this quote unquote female, Shonda Rhimes, is wearing a very similar pattern, black with the flowery, the colors on her dress, very similar to what we saw from Olivia Munn and Niecy Nash at that award ceremony. Remember, the goddess of fertility, not just fertility for people, of course that was Aphrodite, but fertility of the ground was Demeter, Demeter, right? Goddess of crops and growth. Demeter is where you get that symbol of the triangle from. The triangle representing the doorway, and of course, when you turn the triangle upside down, that represents the vagina, right? That portal or that doorway from the spirit world, at least in the Kemetic philosophy, from the spiritual world to the physical world. Right. Brothers, look, I'm just being real with you. These females, they worship the mother goddess, and they are heavily into witchcraft. It's called Dianic Wicca. Dianic Wicca. So even within the Wiccan belief system, you have different splinter groups. Like regular Wicca, they venerate the male god and the female goddess. In Dianic Wicca, they're only dealing with the female goddess.
Prior to the latest allegations, for a story on CBS Sunday Morning, special contributing correspondent Oprah Winfrey sat down with a group of women who helped start the Time's Up movement. They discussed the line between inappropriate behavior and sexual assault.
There is a difference.
There is a difference, but there's a culture that one part of it supports the other. There's an understanding of consent and respect that I think has gotten very confused in our culture, that has set up a space that can make all of that happen.
Look, I've already covered Miss Ross's statements in the video that I did on Oprah Sit Down with those idiots. But I just want to state one thing again, which I constantly reiterate to you brothers. Be very, very careful with the verbal interactions that you have with these females, especially in the workplace. And you hold them to the same standard that they hold you. When they're trying to go back and forth with flirtatious banter, you make sure that you put them in their place. Because believe me, if you're trying to flirt with them and it's unwanted, they're going to run the HR or whatever office or administrative system is set up to report you. So please keep that in mind. Now let's pay some close attention to what Miss Condoleezza Rice has to say about this situation, because she's the only one who has anything sensible to say that I've heard from the quote-unquote female side. And when I say from the female side, I'm talking about from the female side of the entertainment industry, because even government is associated with the entertainment industry. Okay, but let's pay attention to what she had to say.
Let's not turn women into snowflakes.
But on CNN, former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice suggested people should be careful about how they respond to the movement.
I don't want it to get to a place that men start to think, well, maybe it's just better not to have women around. I've heard a little bit of that.
Yeah, and you're going to hear a lot more of that. And that's why I stated that brothers should pay very close attention to what she has to say, because she is tapped in on higher levels. And the reason why she said that was because she's trying to give many of these low-level thinking liberal females a warning. At the end of the day, you're never going to control the flow of money. So you can go through the emotional ritual of trying to act as if you're so outraged and you're going to join in. And, you know, it's kind of like a lot of these, like these regular low-level, two-dimensional internet revolutionary blacks who got all whipped into a fury a couple of years ago and joined up with the so-called Black Lives Matter movement. That's how many of these females in Hollywood are, who now are trying to get caught up in the quote-unquote Time's Up movement. It's going to lead nowhere, because at the end of the day, it only makes sense if it makes money. A female-led and female-driven Hollywood is going to completely ruin the entertainment industry, because they don't really take into account how certain messages that they're going to try to communicate are going to cripple themselves and their own opportunity to make money. As I stated in the previous video, they had the nerve to post or to try to promote Taraji P. Henson as an A-lister in Hollywood. What has she done to be considered an A-lister? They were trying to push the film Proud Mary, which is basically her playing ISIS, trying to protect her child Haru, and the film flopped. It flopped. Nobody wants to see that silly shit. Nobody. Because you have to look at it like, if you're Taraji P. Henson, and you're the producers of that film, who is your target audience? Do you think that black women are gonna run out to the film, to the movie theater to support that? You think that black women want to see that? Black women are not going to run to see that movie. They wouldn't even watch that shit on cable. Like, if you wanted to attract an audience of so-called black women, you'd be more likely to get them to go see a film like Hidden Figures, something like that. But the black woman's not going to run to see an action movie because it stars a black woman. That's stupidity.
The allegations against Ansari have sparked a debate over whether this incident deserved outrage. A New York Times opinion writer called the Babe article deeply irresponsible journalism, adding, "If this is assault, then I don't know a person, man or woman, that isn't a survivor."
And look, and you're starting to see a split amongst many of these females, and we're going to touch on that in another video. But I would not even call it deeply irresponsible journalism, because I don't think that it's journalism at all. I mean, what exactly is she reporting? In order for it to be journalism, she would have to have gotten in contact with Aziz Ansari. Basically, all it is print gossip. It's not really journalism. Did Miss Katie Wade try to contact Mr. Aziz Ansari and get his get his version or his testimony in regards to what occurred? Did she take into account what he stated? Just by seeing Miss Katie Wade in her sit-down interview, she does not seem to grasp that when you're in a situation with a female or a female with a man who, and yes, believe it or not, females do try to pressure men into sex sometimes. If someone says no, then that's that. She clearly never said no because she was so enraptured and so caught up in the fact that she was in his presence. Like, wow, I'm about to have sex with Aziz Ansari. And I've said this before on this channel. Women in general are groupies. They're fans. That's of their DNA to follow a man, whether they like it, understand it, believe it or not. And that's also why I tell brothers incessantly on this channel that you're not supposed to be a fan of another man. When you become a grown man, then you respect another man for his ability to maximize his potential, to capitalize on his gifts, and you give him respect for that. But to be a fan of another man, to be a fan basically means to be a worshiper. So I tell cats, your woman and your children are supposed to be fans of yours. You're not supposed to be a fan of another man. But just to get to the point, just looking at what this female Barry Weiss said, at the bottom it says, if this is assault, then I don't know a person, man or woman, that isn't a survivor. Even she is starting to see that the hashtag #MeToo movement and the hashtag Time's Up movement is heading in a very, very dangerous direction. Once again, most females are not three-dimensional thinkers. They don't even really approach three-dimensional thought process until they're about 60. That's why Paul stated that, that the young women should be taught by a woman 70 and upward, that is 60 years old. Okay? That's when the woman gets to the level where she can actually have a macrocosmic thought process where she's thinking about someone other than herself. So this female here, I give her kudos, Barry Weiss, because it does take a good deal of courage for a female to come out and say something like that in a time like this where the woman is being encouraged to view the man as her oppressor and her perpetual attacker.
Just because something is normal doesn't mean it's okay.
Now listen to what this dumb bitch just said. Just because something is normal doesn't mean it's okay. I guarantee you she doesn't even know what she just said. I would like to know how many antidepressant prescriptions she has. And I'm dead serious about that. A lot of you brothers pay very close attention. You go to these women's houses. You know, these women, they come to your house. They look all up in your medicine cabinet. You go to that woman's house. You got to go take a leak. Look in that bitch and see how... look in that damn medicine cabinet and see how many pill bottles she got up in there. All right? Because it's going to have a trickle-down effect in your relationship.
Just because something happens a lot doesn't mean it should ever happen.
Look at how defensive and angry this broad is getting. I need to ask her, number one, how many antidepressant prescriptions do you have? Number two, have you ever been assaulted by a man sexually? Number three, did a male relative try to molest you when you were a child? These are things that you have to be cognizant of as a man when you're dealing with these females, because those demons will come out. And look, I get it. I understand that sexual assault is a very, very serious thing. No, a man should not be sexually assaulting a female. Once a female has declared that she's not interested, yes, a man should move on to the next. Not only because it's harassment, but it's also embarrassing to be a grown-ass man begging a female for a date or for her number. You should be embarrassed. Once the female says no, move on to the next. But that does not mean that that many of these younger, super liberal females have the right to try to socially engineer men. That's why they constantly are replaying that segment of the Oprah interview where she says, do men need to be reprogrammed or retaught? And all those females say yes. What does that mean? They're talking about your sons. So you should be very cognizant of what your sons are being taught in school, what they're being told.
In his statement, Ansari said he took his accuser's comments to heart after she told him how she felt, and he says he responded to her privately. He went on to say he still supports the recent Time's Up movement, calling it necessary and long overdue.
Well, he doesn't have an option but to support that. Any male in Hollywood who speaks his mind, contrary to the so-called Time's Up movement, is going to be blackballed. So I want to see who's going to be the first actor to have the courage to say that this is bullshit. Yes, females should be paid more than a man if she's generating more than a man. That's how the pay scale should be evaluated. No, women should not be getting paid equal with men just because they're all in the same movie. That's asinine. That's why most of these women, no matter how much money they make, they're normally broke because they don't understand the concept of money. It's just idiotic.
Suffice to say, it's something that's sparking conversations.
Right. And I think we can all agree that one thing that's not controversial or shouldn't be controversial is the question that Oprah raised: is it time for relearning?
Yeah.
You see how she reiterated that, brothers? You see that? That is the intention of many of these. And what qualifies the average modern day female to think that a man can be retaught by her? Do you see the lofty position that many of these liberal females are trying to put themselves on? First off, for you to evaluate that a whole demographic needs to, quote unquote, relearn or be retaught, what that implies is that you're more intelligent than the people who you feel like need to be retaught.
Because I think that's a debate among generations of men that many are having now.
No, that's no debate amongst generations of men. The only debate right now amongst men who actually are paying attention to what's going on is how batshit crazy are you silly bitches, and what eventually is going to have to be done for order to be restored.
Back to that old thing when you were in college, no means no.
Exactly.
No matter where the process is or what's going on, no means no.
That's good. I'm glad that Gail said that. You hear that, brothers? No matter where the process is, no means no. So when you got some broad's legs over your shoulders and you're about to bust a nut, don't hold it back because you're waiting for her to bust a nut first. You go ahead, bust your nut, and you say, you know what? I no longer want to have sex with you. I'm finished. No means no. And kick out of your apartment. That's all.
There needs to be a little bit of relearning about that. I agree.
We'll hear some more on this story from Aziz as well. Anna, thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Whatever, bitch. I'm going to continue to follow this storyline because this is certainly going to metastasize into something bigger. Peace.